Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am insanely crazy excited about my guest today. My favorite person in the whole wide world, besides my wife, Annie P. Ruggles, she's amazing, and you will be as in love with her as I am at the end of this episode. Okay, so I'm going to read her bio and bring her on. For over a decade, Annie P. has harnessed her Hulk-like disdain for hard sales, tacky self-promotion, and overly competitive sleazeballs as inspiration to help people find better ways to grow their small businesses. One of the reasons I love her so much. As founder of the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy and QuirkWorks Consulting, she's guided hundreds of people toward making deeper connections, lasting impressions, and friendlier, more lucrative transactions and conversations. Her pride and joy is her podcast, which I'm going to be on tomorrow, but this is going to be aired way in the future. But I'm so excited about that. Too Legitimate to Quit. Instantly actionable small business strategies with a pop culture spin. And what do you think we spoke about? So without further ado, let's meet Annie. Yay!
I don't know, Iris. What did we talk about?
I don't know. I think it might be some kind of a green teeny little thing that has some kind of helmet over here and,
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
We spent the whole weekend.
For those of you who aren't vividly watching to understand this, Iris is literally completely surrounded by Star Wars things, the majority of which relate to Mandalorians in some way. So, yeah, in case you're not, really leaning into the camera, that's what we're talking about.
Yes. I have my ring that I got at the Fan Expo this weekend that I'm very proud of. But yes, I love all things Star Wars, Mandalorian, Ahsoka. Annie was a very bad influence on me this weekend. Buy it. And Heather's like, don't you dare. And Annie's like, buy it.
Just trying to support my local economy.
Yes, absolutely. And lots of money was spent. Lots of fun was had. We had 2 potatoes that were the size of Illinois.
Asteroids? Yeah.
Like asteroids? Yeah. I mean, they were just...
if you dropped it off a building, it would kill someone. Hands down. Instant. These potatoes. And then Iris asked the wonderful waiter, whose name I wish I remembered, where the potatoes are from. And he looks Iris dead in the face and just says, Idaho. And
I said, no, what lab did it come from? Because this thing was so big. I mean, and then there's this couple that's sitting across from us, clearly well-to-do, who was looking at us because we were, Annie had her ears on from Bob's Burgers, and, we're all
singing. We were singing Andrew Lloyd Webber.
We were singing Andrew. We were singing Evita. We were not Evita. We were singing You Must Love Me. Where do we go?
And here she goes again. Iris, we got to record an episode.
I know. It was just so good. But we sang the whole song. I even pulled the lyrics up.
We did. Well, you needed the lyrics. I didn't, but
I know you didn't need them because I hadn't seen it in so long.
Yep. I
was very impressed that you did not need those lyrics.
Yeah. I have a musical theater degree, but we'll talk about that
on
this episode of the Cookbook.
Whole nother. But we have decided that Evita was the best movie reproduction of a play.
Yeah, I'll die on that hill today. Sure.
I mean, that's what we talked about. We have to give props to Madonna. The people that are out there that are haters. You can go ahead and be a hater, but she was amazing in that. So
you can hate. Go ahead.
Go ahead. And we even acted out the.
Yeah, no wonder the people at the table next to us hated it. Yeah, but our spouses loved it in the way that introverts love when people burst into song near them in crowded restaurants. Yeah.
Although you notice they weren't surprised, at all.
No, they've been married to us for over a decade. Come on now. No.
It was pretty funny.
All right, the cookbook.
Yes, no, not the cookbook. You. Let's talk about you. We're here to talk about you and all of your amazingness.
Okay.
So, the cookbook is the cookbook, but talk about you. Like tell everybody who you are so they can love you as much as I do and why, what you do and all of the things. And yes, so Annie is also my fractional CMO. I'm just going to throw that out there. She's fractional CMO work and she is freaking amazing. So
thank you.
But besides that, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you read my bio, so thank you for that. I do many, many things and wear many, many hats, including eating very large potatoes with Iris at steakhouses in Chicago and being her fractional CMO. But yes, like my bio said, I am the founder of the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy and the founder of QuickWorks Consulting. I have been a small business strategist in some way since 2011. So it's been a long and winding road. And I'm just really excited to share with y'all today some of the things I've learned along the way to hopefully make your learning curve a little bit less rocky and circuitous than mine was. Although we also know that the journey is part of the fun once the nausea wears off.
Right. Once the nausea, yes, take Dramamine for it because it's definitely a little rocky. So, I mean, you've been doing your stuff for years. So what did you do before you became a lovely entrepreneur?
Oh, boy.
I know.
I had a variety of performance jobs here in Chicago. I ran birthday parties at the Lincoln Park Zoo, which involved feeding cows. I was the marketing and promotions director at Broadway in Chicago when the Wicked tour came through. So I used to run their singing contests.
Oh my God. I was there for that.
Yeah. It was great the first, 80 times.
Right.
But yeah, let's see what else. God, the weirdest jobs. I used to work in a bar basement call center. No, because I'm way too empathic and being mean to people, even humorously, makes me really uncomfortable. So but I was in Tony and Tina's wedding as Tina's drunken best friend / cocktail lounge singer, Donna Marsala. And that one, I didn't have to be mean to anybody. I just got to climb all over their tables and eat other people's food.
Okay, that's like amazing. But I have to tell you, so Ed DeBevics isn't there anymore. For those of you who don't know,
it's back.
It's back?
It's back in a new location about 4 blocks from the other location on the other side of Michigan Avenue. Ed DeBevics, sponsor this podcast.
Yes, Ed DeBevics. Let me tell you what. So it like their tagline is "Eat and Get Out," and my sister outlaw's sister, who technically is kind of like my cousin, took me there for the first time when I was in Chicago for the first time, and did not tell me that they're rude. So me being straight from New York, had this waiter come up or this waitress. And she was really rude. And I was just like, what in the hell? So I looked at her and I'm like, I want to talk to the manager. You're being completely rude. This is completely unacceptable. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Well, I had her crying. I had no idea. And Linda was like, way to go. And I went, what? So of course the manager comes over and he said,
"Oh my God,
do you know what this is about?" And I was like, "Oh my God, no!" I had no. I tipped her $100. I felt like so bad. I was like, "I'm so sorry. Take all my money." I didn't know, and she didn't know.
This is an important parable. When there's a brand differentiator that is very important, it probably shouldn't be left up for surprise. So for those of you at home trying to figure out what in the heck we're talking about, Ed DeBevics is a Chicago downtown tourist trap institution where the gimmick is that they have pretty decent food, but the servers will demean you within an inch of your life. So having not been told this, I can only assume our dear Iris here thought that the person was being legitimately terrible.
Yes.
In a dining establishment on the job, not quite understanding that that's the gimmick, right? So if you have a differentiator of import, like being mean as a joke, you better make that damn clear to every person before they walk in the door, and don't leave it up to your referrers to share that information for you because, like Iris's friend, they will forget until it's a customer service issue.
Or they just won't tell you because they want to see your reaction, which is...
Or they're just, trying to be a jerk.
Yeah.
For
So
fun.
there's a place in New York called Thomas's Diner. And there, it's New York, so everybody figures everyone's going to be rude. My friend took me there years ago and didn't tell me. And the waitress was really, really rude. And I was like, what the hell? But being a New Yorker, she was like, well, if you don't like it, get the fuck out. And I was just like, what? They serve your food. Like if you get breakfast, they serve it in the frying pan that they make it in. They're like, here you go. And they like throw it in front of you. Oh yeah, it's amazing. Okay. We'll have to go to New York together and you have to go. I have to make sure it's still there. It is like the most fun experience.
I'll take a sedative so I don't cry.
You won't cry. I got you. Okay. But it's amazing. Quirkworks.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about it.
Oh boy. So Quirkworks is the newest iteration. I'm not going to call it a rebrand or a pivot because it's just my next level up title. In that, since 2019, I have been operating solely as the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy, which I adore and is by far the stickiest brand I've ever invented. People love the name. It's clear, and they get the gist of both my tone and what I'm selling to them pretty darn quickly. But I started speaking again, and I started coaching in different ways again. I started spearheading and co-creating funnels again. And I would meet people, especially at my speaking gigs, and they'd say, so who are you? What do you do? And I'd say, oh, I'm the founder of the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy. And then they would kind of look disappointed or dejected. And I would go, what, why? What's wrong? And they'd say, well, I'm sad because I really thought that you were going to be able to help me with my marketing. And without leaving my lane, I was like, well, I can. And they're like, well, but how does that tie into the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy? And the true answer is, other than the fact that both of them fall out of the brain of me and have my same service guarantee, because again, they're falling out of my head and my heart, I have two very different skill sets that are cousins, but are not twins. And so I thought, how am I going to not sunset the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy? Because it's still very, very important to me, but give myself an umbrella brand that can be more all-encompassing as I grow. So Quirkworks Consulting is both my marketing and funnel management systems, my CMO work that I do for people like you, plus the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy, plus the Antipreneur family of podcasts. So Quirkworks is the umbrella that allows me to have creative play and serve more people how I want to be serving them.
Perfect. And the fact that somebody would think that you can't help them with their marketing just kills me.
Right? I was like, oh,
You're like, what do you mean I can't? Yeah, I really can. I promise.
Yeah, but they were asking me. I'm so grateful for those people because they showed me that even though there was no disconnect in my mind, because I can switch those hats instantaneously, I teach my audiences and I teach my students that marketing and sales were a different department. They are a different department, and that we have to be able to switch between them, but we have to be able to communicate as both. And yet I was expecting my own market to see the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy and deduce that somehow that also means that I can help with your marketing, even though I'm literally the first one to tell you that sales and marketing aren't the same thing. So I'm so grateful because we all, when we've been in business for as long as we accrue these blind spots in the weirdest places that we would never expect. So I'm so grateful that all those people came up to me and were like, wait, but that means you can't help me with my marketing. Enough that I was like, oh, back up. I have a messaging and positioning issue here. And as a person who focuses a lot on messaging and positioning, I took it as a reminder to do my own work first and to give myself the spaciousness to grow.
Right. And that's perfect because at the end of the day, yeah, it that must have just been like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like a really big aha moment. So, well, I'm glad that you did Quirk Works because Quirk is just perfect.
Thank
Um,
you.
I mean, you're so quirky. Um, so, so, um, what, what made you decide to, I'm gonna say become an entrepreneur, but like, what made you
Mhm.
decide to do all this?
What made me decide to be an entrepreneur was birth. I'm really lucky. A lot of people, like my own parents, had these kind of predestined career paths laid out for them, but both of them, throughout the course of their lives, chose to give up the cushy confines and become entrepreneurs. So I, for the majority of my life, was the child of two entrepreneurs. I am still the child of two entrepreneurs, except now they're retired. And so for me, I consider that a tremendous advantage on two fronts. Number one, I was able to see from a very young age that third road, that entrepreneurial path, is possible. Right? That I could go and pave my own way and find a way to do what I uniquely am good at on my own without adult supervision or whatever we want to call it. That was a really big, important lesson because it was never strange to me. That idea was very natural to me. Going and working in a corporate job where you're mistreated was never sensical to me because I had seen how my parents had found better paths for themselves. But I also got voluntold a lot as a teenager and even as a preteen to do stuff in my mom's office. And so the very first entrepreneurial marketing things that I ever did, the very first web copy I ever wrote, the very first emails I ever wrote for a business capacity, the first contracts I ever saw, the first marketing materials I ever made, those were all from my mom.
Wow.
Learning how to write as somebody else, my mom. Because even though we're so similar, I was a freaking 14-year-old, and she's writing professional marketing copy. And then I would write something and she'd go, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say this. So I learned how to pay attention. So I learned how to listen for those differentiators. And then I would go to these big conventions like the National Speakers Association conference with my mom, and I would see, thousands of speakers. And I would say, okay, what about this is going to help me help people understand how special and unique and gifted my mom is. Like, how is she different? And so I just was picking all of that up through osmosis. But even as a little kid, if I saw a business going out of business, I would just cry, even if I'd never been there. Even if it was a Jiffy Lube and I'm like 8, I would just be like, "Wah!" Like I would just lose it because I understood, because of my own family, that that's somebody's dream. And I was just like, well, hold on. If I can use these talents that I've been building to keep other people's dreams alive so that they can have more time with their families, so that they can have the lifestyle they want with their families, whether their family is just them or they have 87 children or whatever. I don't care. That's not up to me. But no matter what your dream is and no matter who you're trying to uplift, be it a family, a community, yourself, no shame, right? But I started to see in my early 20s that there was a need for people who could speak for others in a way of compelling marketing and messaging and copywriting. And then the rest of it all evolved from there.
Wow. I had no idea about your mom. We've like talked about like all the other things except for like that. That's amazing. And that explains a lot. That makes things make a lot of sense. So,
oh yeah, I mean, I'm a poster child for a motivational speaker's kid. Like, we're all like me. We're all, yeah. Mm-hmm.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, my email copy is so, but which we'll talk about later. So like what, I don't want to get into the question yet because there's like, you're so like interesting. Let's talk about Too Legitimate to Quit because we had so much freaking fun on that.
Yeah.
I've been on a lot of podcasts at this point, and that was just like I mean, us being us and then talking pop culture, come on. That was just, it was just so much fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the show that I hear from most of my guests that it's the most fun that they've had on a podcast. And one of the tenets of Quirkworks is that founder joy matters. And both from a self-care standpoint, which is obvious, but also from a strategic standpoint. Because if I can get you laughing, if I can get you relaxed, if I can get you to drop the spiel you came in the door with, even though that spiel is probably freaking brilliant, but if I can get different areas of your brain to light up, I'm gonna get different answers. And so what I give my guests, I call it is the gift of the atypical soundbite, right? Because especially when a lot of us are prioritizing podcast guesting as a marketing tool, which I freaking love. Like, I love being on podcasts, but even I would start to fall into the pattern of like, and now I'm going to tell this story, and then I'm going to say this thing twice, and then I'm going to drive this point home, and then I'm going to sail in this offer, and I'll copy and paste the pitch from last time, and, Bob's your uncle. And when you're listening to someone deliver stuff they've delivered a million times, you can start to pick up on the staleness. It's not their fault. It's because they've said it 1,000 times, right? And so if I can get you talking about website and accessibility lessons from The Mandalorian, that's what I'm going to do. Because even if we're not talking about The Mandalorian in that moment, you're still showing up with me. We're still laughing. We're still having fun. We're still connecting. And you know that at any moment, I'm going to totally turn the tables and ask you about Grogu. And you're going to have to try to find the connection. And so I get these very real, very raw, but very joyful, still actionable episodes out of people because they're having fun. And that's just neuroscience. It just lights up different parts of your brain.
Right. And it's funny because that's what I try to do on here is, I ask the questions that I ask, but I really want it to be about the journey. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people that, they just want to talk about their stuff. And I'm like, no. We'll do that. I want to hear the journey. Like, I want to hear what got you from here to here, because that's, to me, the interesting part. Like you saying that all the things that you did before, you did this, that to me is the interesting stuff, because, that's how you got to be who you are and where you are.
Yep.
So for me, it's fun. But, the pop culture thing, that you do is just, and you did, you're like, okay, so if you were Grogu, how would you market this? And it was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, very famously, His Royal Highness, Mike Michalowicz, picked Revenge of the Nerds for his pop culture topic. It's his favorite movie. And so in the course of our episode, he picked this like months in advance, y'all. Like, I had to get on this man's calendar like months in advance, and I was glad to do it. That's not a complaint. But he picked Revenge of the Nerds. It's his favorite freaking movie. This is like one of the foremost entrepreneurial authors of our time, okay? And I get him on the show, and we're talking about kindness, and we're talking about differentiation, and the conversation is amazing. And he calls me out for fangirling him, which I totally needed to hear, but it was on a hot mic, so I was like, okay, but sure. But then I said, okay, the big question, what does any of this have to do with Revenge of the Nerds? And Mike Michalowicz goes, well, I don't know. Like, but even so, we had so much fun, and he's always fun, but we had a different kind of fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if I can get you to stand on your head, you'll see the room differently. If I can get you to think about how Golden Girls are like Facebook ads, you're going to think about that the next time you get frustrated with your Facebook ads.
And
hopefully you know what to do.
Yeah. If you go and see, Golden Girls like Mount Rushmore. I mean, what the hell?
Which I just bought this weekend. That was my dorky purchase, was Golden Girls Rushmore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because who the hell would think of that? But anyway.
But I just wanted to make sure that sometimes we get so entrenched. Audiences get entrenched in the same information. Thought leaders get entrenched in the same sound bites, and every now and then we just gotta shake it up, which is also one of the main things of Quirkworks, in addition to like, hey, if you can find humor or joy, founder delight matters. But another one is like, come at it from an angle that's slightly askew, right? There's a really great quote from the movie musical Funny Girl starring Barbara Streisand, where she says, I'm a bagel on a plate of onion rolls. Good.
Yes.
Good, right? And she's saying it on the point of being like, I understand I'm not your typical Corrine, right? She's auditioning for a Follies at that point and is trying to beg forgiveness for the fact that she's different, but argue that different is good. We have passed the point as a saturated market because every single listener, I promise you, your market is saturated unless you are doing like very specific aquatic taxidermy Christmas ornaments. Like you are in a really saturated market. And so if you're going to do something and you have a way on how it can be done, just slightly ajar, just slightly differently, try that on. See if it feels more like a gimmick or more like the truth to you. Because talking in pop culture illusions, although it is a gimmick, is how I naturally talk.
So, of course, you bring up Streisand.
Of course.
And you bring up Funny Girl.
Of course.
Which makes me want to go, people.
Yeah, people who need people.
Are the luckiest.
I knew that she was going to sing. I knew she was going to sing.
I knew this was going to come up.
Right?
You're the only person I've sang on this podcast with.
Oh, good.
I mean,
although
you bring out the musical theater nerd in me. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, our marketing calls are, me pulling MacArthur Park out of my ass.
Yes,
like, what was I singing? I didn't even know I was singing that.
MacArthur Park, A Time for Us.
A Time for Us.
I think we sang "Hang On, Sloopy" or "Windy" or something at one point. There were some definite like golden oldies up in there.
Oh my goodness.
Intermixed with the Great American Songbook, but like that's you,
right?
You and I as client and provider, in order to sustain each other and to get better work done, if we're at a point of stress where we don't know what to do, one of us is going to break the tension by making the other one laugh. And normally when we're laughing, we're singing. Right. That's just us. And I'm not saying to every listener, like, oh, make sure you start randomly singing on your client calls. But if that's the rapport you have, I give you full permission to lean into it and see how it feels. Because A, it's polarizing, which is liberating. B, like I said, we have passed the point of having to apologize for differentiation. It's essential in crowded markets. So if you're going to be known as the singing strategist, get it done. Get in there. I don't know what that looks like for you because I'm not you. But, if that's you, try it on. See how it fits. Again, does it feel more like a gimmick? Does it feel forced? Does it feel like it's going to grate? Or does it feel like you're finally getting to put on a you outfit? Does it feel like you're finally getting to let your hair down? If that's true, I say please, in how you treat your clients and how you treat yourself and how you show up in your marketing, please just try leaning in 10% more into that thing because it's amazing what you find when you break yourself from those confines. Yes, freeing is the perfect word.
Yes, it is. The reason that, Avita even came up was because we were stuck on something. We were like, where do we go from here? So, of course, the next natural move was...
This isn't where we intended to be immediately.
Immediately. It was just immediate. And, there are like clients that I work with, people work with me because I'm fun. Sometimes I get a little too fun and they're a little serious and, I want to be like lighten up, but I also know how to read the room, right? It took years, but I know how to read the room now. And sometimes you have to read the room. Sometimes, let's say I am the singing strategist, which I'm not, but if I were, and I start, breaking out into song, and my client's a lawyer, and he's like, what are you even doing?
Yep.
I'm going to lose him because I'm not serious enough, right? So you have to read the room, but then there's also that piece of, working with people whose values align with yours. And when we're in the arena that we're in, and when we're in the place that we're in, we can do that. We can pick and choose, who we're going to work with, who clicks with us, because not everybody does as much as we want it, to be. There are some people out there that, are like, oh my God, you're insane, or you're just not my cup of tea. And I'm like, that works out fine, because obviously then you're not my cup of tea. And it's not a bad thing, because to me that just leaves the door open for the right cup of tea to come knocking. So like, what advice would you have for someone who's thinking of becoming an entrepreneur? Now, I know, we talked about, looking at the market, and, it's saturated, and, but there are some people that don't have a choice. They just lost their job, and they're trying to figure something out, and maybe they shouldn't be entrepreneurs. Maybe they can be. And then there's people who are in jobs that are thinking about it. So what would Annie P. Ruggles say to them?
What Annie P. Ruggles says to you is, think about the sacrifices involved, right? So what I mean by that, there's a really, really great book. What the heck is it called? By Mark Manson. I'll think of it. But there's a really, really great book where he specifically talks about the fact that if you are a professional ballerina, your feet are messed up. Period.
They are.
Period. And how do we know your feet are messed up? That is the cost of doing business. That means you have been on point, jumping your butt around for long days on minimal food forever in literal wooden shoes, bouncing your toes onto them. You're going to have bloody, broken feet. Okay? You're going to have a podiatrist on speed dial. That doesn't mean don't do it. If your dream is a ballerina, then go after that dream, but go after that dream and don't be surprised or discouraged when your feet bleed. Okay? What I mean by that is, when I started my first iteration of business back in like 2011, there was this really big entrepreneurship boom because the dot-com bubble had just burst, but we were all looking for new ways to get out there. And so there was this big entrepreneurial boom. Awesome! Amazing! But all these books came out and all these things came out saying, quit your job, do it yourself. Do it yourself. Get out there. And I don't think people actually read the books. I think they read the titles, right? Because all of these great books came out, like The $100 Startup and The 4-Hour Workweek and Escape from Cubicle Nation, right? And all of these different things. And they all said, chart your own course, do it. But every single one of those books, if you actually read them and not just the Cliff Notes or not just on Audible at 1.75%, will say this is a risk. This is a lifestyle choice, and not a lifestyle choice where you automatically get to go onto a beach with your laptop and never work and make passive income. That doesn't just happen. That is a freaking myth, right? So make sure you understand that as an entrepreneur, you are a ballerina, and that some feast months are part of it, and some famine months and some broken feet are also freaking part of it. And challenging yourself like an athlete every day is part of it. Arguing with yourself on a weekly, if not daily basis is part of it. Having your ego tested, your confidence shaken. I'm not saying any of this to dissuade you. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, I want you to go in with eyes open so that when your feet bleed, you see that as a sign of progress.
Yep.
And B, a benchmark towards your future success. Like, okay, I'm doing the damn thing and therefore I have the broken feet. Not, how come I'm the only one with bleeding feet? Because everybody's feet are bleeding, at least sometimes.
Right.
Right? So for entrepreneurs who are just beginning or anything else, just go in with your eyes open. If you hit a snag, if you hit a rough day, if you hit a mindset block, if you have a terrible sales month, if you have to hire or fire someone and it doesn't work out, whatever it may be, that is the cost of doing business as an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean you're flawed. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're doing it. And I just still, 12 years later, I'm not seeing quite enough people in a positive way say, y'all, this is brutal and hard and gorgeous and fulfilling and terrible and wonderful and freeing and awful and nauseating and great. Because it's all of it.
It's all of it together. And I think the thing that the people don't realize, and I think I probably say this at least, I don't know, once a month, it's not for the weak of heart. It's not, because like Annie just said, your toes are going to bleed. You're going to break your toes. You're going to bleed. You're going to question yourself. You're going to, imposter syndrome is going to, sneak in. Thank you, Jen Koken. But it does. And even seasoned entrepreneurs, we have moments where we're like, wait a minute, are we really who we say? That imposter syndrome kind of like sneaks in, and it's okay. All of that stuff is okay. And, I always say, and I don't know who coined this phrase, but if you ever really want to get to know yourself, become an entrepreneur.
Oh,
period.
Boy.
Because that's when you get to know the good, the messy, the holy shit, can I do this? The, oh my God, I can't do this. And realize that, you can do it. You are strong enough. Like when I scaled, oh my God. Okay. So everyone knows that I've been talking about scaling. Annie is the person that I called and I was like, holy shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because none of the things are in place that we need to do for this challenge. There's nothing in place. I don't have the CRM. I don't have this. I don't have this. And she's like, it's okay, baby. I got you. And I'm like, but I don't got me. And it was literally a meltdown. Like I melted down.
We're all going to melt down. We are all going to melt down at least once per quarter. Right? Like we could all recommend some really great therapists because we should all be talking to them all the time. Right. And again, like every time I say this, the little voice in the back of my mind goes, Annie, you're scaring people off. Annie, you're scaring people off. No. Just know what you're signing up for. Know that this is the Olympics of self-fulfillment. This is the Olympics of self-advocacy. Right? It's not a side hustle or a part-time job. If you're stepping out on your own at all and exchanging real people's hard-earned money, time, and energy for brilliance that is of you, whether that's a product or a service, that energetic balance is freaking awesome and frail and needs to be nurtured like a picky houseplant. Right? Yeah. Or a pet on special meds. And that's just it. Just because your pet I have a senior cat now. Just because my senior cat has to eat senior cat food, I don't love her less. Right. I just have to put her first in a different way. When my business has a tough month, I don't love it less. And I can't beat me up more, which is what I used to do, because that only makes everything worse. Right? So what do? I tend to the plant. I feed the cat. I nurse my broken feet and I get back to dancing. That's what I want everybody to know.
Right. And you're 100% right, because when you fall, because you're going to, it's like horseback riding. If you don't get back up and you don't get right back on the horse, you're going to stay down there and you're going to just start licking your wounds. And the next thing you know, you're going to either be working for somebody again, which you don't want to do, or you're going to not have just one bad month or two bad months. You're going to have to just regroup and start over. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people just be like, oh my God, I suck. And it's like, no, you don't suck. You've had a bad month. That's okay. You're probably going to have 100 bad months, but it's okay. Just keep going. Keep going. Don't stop.
It's an endurance sport. It's an endurance sport.
It's not
what do we accrue? Tenacity.
Yep. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And as long as you realize that, and as long as you realize that you're not going to be an overnight successes take 10 years. I mean, unless you happen to step in a giant pile of shit and you're the luckiest person in the world. Sorry for that. But, it's true. If unless that happens, it's rare. So know that it's going to take a lot of hard work. I love how on Instagram, you see these entrepreneurs, they're on a beach and they're doing this and they're all happy and everything is perfect. But it's not perfect. They're like in the back going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But they're not going to let you see that. So,
no. I mean, Iris and I had a blast this last weekend at Fan Expo Chicago. And the morning that we were all supposed to meet up, I wanted to get there 2 hours earlier and my husband's uncle died.
Yeah.
So even though I had the best laid plans, even though I'm on the top of my business game and get to hang out with one of my business besties who I love so much, and our spouses who we love so much, the world had different plans for my day. And that's outside of my control. So what I can do is be kind to myself in the moment, be flexible, understand what the essentials are, practice self-forgiveness, and figure out in a hurry if I'm really the innovator I tell everybody I am, which is what we did. We made it work, right? And that's what it required.
But it wasn't like, for me, I wasn't hanging out with my business bestie. For me, it was like we were hanging out. We were, we were meeting on a different level. It wasn't just about business, obviously, although, for tax purposes, yes, it was a business weekend because we got a lot of podcast interviews. I'm just going to throw that out there. But that was one thing, right? Like talking to artists and like saying, hey, we should do like this podcast together, which was crazy. I never would have thought about that in like a million years. So that just opened me up. I'm like meeting all these artists going, hey, if I felt they were a good fit, do you want to be on a podcast? And they were like, holy shit. Yeah. So here we are. And I was like, I never even would have thought of that, but we digress. So what obstacles have you gone through as a business owner? Like what's something that, you've been through or are still going through that somebody might be going through now and they're like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea where to even start.
We talked about this before when we talked about how I gave myself Corkworks as kind of an accidental present. Mm-hmm. But what the most recent lesson I've learned, because I've learned bajillions and I will learn a bajillion more like by the end of the week, I'm sure. But the one that's been most pressing for me lately is giving yourself the permission to evolve, because evolution sometimes can feel like ego death. And evolution sometimes can feel like killing Old Yeller. And evolution sometimes can feel like backtracking. And for me, it felt like all of those things wrapped up in a really beautiful package with more good stuff. But even then, there were things of being like, why on earth would you take spotlight away from the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy? It's the best brand you've ever created. Don't be stupid, Annie. What are you doing? Right? And I had another brand lined up that would have been what Corkworks is now. And I really liked it. And I ran it by my advisors. And all of my advisors were like, no. And that hurt because I was like, oh, well, I thought this was going to be the new iteration of me and nobody even liked it. So maybe I should just stick to what's predictable and loved and everything else, right?
Or who told you that it was, well, never mind.
Not Corkworks. There was another brand and it was bad.
Okay, well then that's different.
And it never really saw the light of day, nor will it ever. But I opening myself up for that feedback was painful, wrapped in a
Yeah.
beautiful experience. Even though I desperately needed to hear it, and they were 1,000% correct, and I got quirk works out of it, right? But like being open to feedback on your evolution is very tender. Returning to things that you thought you had sunset is a weird time warp that feels both really good and also oddly lazy. Like I'm doing marketing stuff that I used to sell in like 2014 again. And that feels really weird. I'm brushing off programs that I haven't sold since 2017, but I'm putting a fresh coat of paint on it. But see, that in my strategy mind could come off as lazy. And all of that is just me trying to keep me in check, in line, safe and small within the brand that I had carved out for myself. And so, what I want everyone to know is that just like I told you how entrepreneurship is hard, your growth may ache sometimes. And that doesn't mean you're not growing.
Right.
Right? Like my own rebrand, which is proven to be a daily gift to my life by the expansiveness and freedom and permission it has given me. Ripping off that Band-Aid and just saying, hey, I'm doing this was so scary. I did it in the middle of the night. All night. I pulled like a college style all-nighter. I went all night. And when everybody woke up the next day, I had a whole new brand. I had a whole new brand because that was the only way I could do it, was in like half tired delirium. And then I got it done. And then it started to feel amazing. And then it started to work. And then it started to flow. So if you are suspicious that you might be clipping your own wings, you might be. And if it's time to to pivot, to rebrand, to expand, to re-niche, to have a founder divorce, to take on a partner, whatever that next big leap is, it's not going to be this pie in the sky, beautiful, pure, 100% joyful feeling, because the ego is always going to try to protect itself. And there it's going to keep you in where it knows that you're going to be safe. Right? So just please consider giving yourself that spaciousness and that freedom to lean into where you think you're ready to go, or to where you need to go in order to grow as a human being.
Right. I mean, give yourself grace, right? Allow yourself grace.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, because when like the growth hits, it is scary. I mean, when I realized with doing the challenge that, this meant growth, it was, I had a moment. I was like, holy shit, am I ready for this? Yeah. But it took me that whole weekend to be like, okay, let me just do my meltdown. And then, Monday I'll hit the ground running. But, it was, I think, when we're here and our next, growth spurt is here and we're about to hit it, because of society, especially as women, right? We self-sabotage so that we don't make that next level. And for me, it was, and for a lot of, women entrepreneurs, but, it's like we're here and we refuse to shrink. So we're going to get to this next level. And then guess what? We're setting another goal. And it is scary because now you have to do more things. You have to add more things. It's not like you can just run on the status quo. Now it's like you need different tools. And it's scary and it can be intimidating. And it's scary and it can be intimidating, but you have to work through it. And I can say that it's scary and intimidating like all freaking night long. But at the end of the day, you have to go through it and you have to get through it. And then once you get through it and you're on the other side, it looks different. And then you have people like Annie who can be like, okay, we're going to put this together and we're going to do this. And we're going to, because I'm so busy doing my stuff for my clients. So I had somebody say, because I was talking to one of my clients saying that I have somebody who is helping me with my marketing. Mm-hmm. And he questioned me for a minute. He said, well, why? That's what you do. I said, because I'm doing yours. And I'm doing hers, and I'm doing his, and I'm doing theirs, and I don't have time to do mine. So I bring in an expert. I mean, but, and I get it. I get that they don't understand that.
Therapists can't do their own therapy.
Right. It's like, physician heal thyself, right? You can't. So, but some people don't understand that. And I was completely fine with it because at the end of the day, I am thankful that I'm in a position that, I can pay you to do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's another story, but, it is, there are certain things that you have to do to move yourself forward. And I think the first thing is knowing what the hell you need, because a lot of people don't even know what they need.
No, and then not being mad at yourself for needing it.
100%. And I was never mad at myself. I think I was blown away because I remember where I was a year ago, less than, more than a year ago. So like, May, when I restarted gas stove was like April, May. And I had, clients that I never let go or, that I had started, whatever. But, when this iteration started again, it blew up. It blew up because I was ready and I had the right people around me and I had the right experience, really. I mean, it took 10 years, right? But here I am. And it's a whole different story. I have somebody starting sales for me next week, which is like insane. But the other part of it is that, you go through the things that actually you grow through the things. Not that you grow through the things. And when you grow, that's when the things I think start changing. And when you know what you need and who to reach out and how to make the things work, because you have to know what you need, who you need, the systems you need to make everything work. And that comes from, experience. So,
yep. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I know I went on a tangent, but it's so important to me because
a good and important tangent.
A good and important tangent. So, I don't even want to ask this, but I mean, because I think we know already, like, what is your differentiator? What, which makes me laugh because I already know it. And I think the audience at this point knows it.
My differentiator has a couple different facets. And let me tell you what I thought my differentiator was and what my clients told me my differentiator is, because they're not the same thing. I thought my differentiation was my capacity for caring. In that my clients become my family and I become deeply invested in the success of their business in a way that it's taken a lot of boundary maintenance, but I found a good balance of it. But that's what I thought my differentiation was. I thought my differentiation was the playfulness. I thought my differentiation was the joy. I thought my differentiation was my capacity for loving my clients. My clients, however, kind of like, well, that's just kind of you, isn't it? Your differentiator is the fact that you never tell us what we should do.
Yes.
And that kind of blew my mind because, and I think this is one of the gifts of having obsessive compulsive disorder. By the time I give up a strategy to someone, I have thought of like 87 different strategies in my head. So by the time I draft an email, I've written like 5 of them like instantaneously in my head. That's just how this machine of mine works, right? And so because I've always seen that all of marketing is experimentation, and then the applied results of those experiments for other experiments, we're all experimenting our way to millions, right?
Right.
When you combine that with the idea that there are many, 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 many pathways, then I become kind of strategy agnostic. I'll tell you what I believe the best, clearest course of action for you is. But if I get a no, I will question the no lovingly. I'll say, okay, why are you pushing back on that? And then if the answer is still, even something as simple as I don't want to, then we don't. then I pull another idea out of the arsenal. If you don't like the email I write for you, I got another one right up behind it. It's not that I'm not dedicated to my work. I'm still putting my greatest offer out there first, my best work forward first, the most streamlined process first. But sometimes at the end of the day, people are just so tired of being told you'll never be successful if you don't blankety blank. And a whole lot of marketers, especially one size fits all marketers, have to use that as a gimmick in order to sell. Unless you have this landing page and it has these sections and only these sections, and unless you label yourself in this way, and unless you're doing 5 reels a week, and unless you are on Twitter or X or whatever the flip it's called now, unless you're on there, and unless you're on there, you have to, you must. And that's not how my brain works. And that's not how my clients' brain work. And it also robs us of flexibility when we think that way. So flexible strategy based on the skills and talents and whims and desires of my clients, and no shoulding ever. Even if it annoys me, even if I know that we're taking an infinitely longer path, well, then you're going to pay me more, and I'm going to tell you you're going to pay me more, and you can choose to or not. Right? But at the end of the day, it's your business, it's your dream, it's your name, it's your legacy, it's your ethics, it's your party. I'm not the driver, I'm a navigator. I can say, hey, why don't we stop here? But if you want to keep the car going, we go. No shoulds.
Wow. I mean, I know that because I know but so people,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that until like 87 people told me that in the same week. And I was like, oh, I think they must be onto something. Because I just thought, if you don't like salmon, try the tuna. If you don't like seafood, try the steak. If you're a vegetarian, I could sell you some delicious macaroni and cheese with extra beans for protein. Like, we'll figure it out.
Right. I think for me, what I love about working with you is that we both, besides the fact that we break out in song, when we actually do the work, it's easy. I've worked with people before that it's like pulling teeth, and it's just not. But with you, it flows. It just flows. Like our ideas flow, everything flows, and I think that for me is so important because I've worked with people where it doesn't flow, and it's literally like you're at the beach and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go swim out about 20 feet, and all of a sudden this like 30-foot wave comes, and you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. No, I'm not. You try to turn around and it doesn't work, and you get slammed down to the bottom of the ocean and whatever. But with you it flows, and it's almost like writing music, working with you. I mean,
well, that's gorgeous. Well, that's a lovely, beautiful, loving thing to say.
But it's the truth. I feel that when we get into our rhythm, we get into a rhythm, and it just goes.
Well, it's co-creation, and in that it is exactly like music.
Yeah.
Right? Like you and I have chosen to duet on this project. Maybe you'll take the lead, maybe I'll take backup, but I'm still there with you. And if you're not going to stay on tempo, you're going to throw off the whole band as the lead. And I, as the band, have the job of listening to you, but also bringing my own unique thing. So it's pure co-creation.
But you pull it right. If I get off tempo, you get us back on tempo. But most of the times I let you take the lead. So,
yeah.
Which is hard for a control freak, but that's how much I trust you. So, well, first up, thank you so much for taking time out today to hang with me and my audience, and letting them know the amazingness that I know is you.
I love you to bits. Any minute I get to spend with you is a great minute.
Oh, no, I completely concur. So I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the last question that I ask all my guests, what lights your fire?
Co-creation. We just talked about it. Play. Come build something with me. Come let me change your mind about who you are when you sell or who you should be when you market. And then let's come create something gorgeous together and let's laugh. And if you want to sing, let's sing. But let's put something new and fresh out into the world that represents you, because the more you get to show up as yourself, the more it just delights the heck out of me, which allows me to show up in my full Muppet enthusiasm. And that's what lights me up is co-creating and the playful joy of watching gorgeous problems get solved all over the world.
I just love you so much. Hang on.
I love you.
I'm going to say goodbye, and I will be right back. Everybody, thank you. Thank you so much for hanging in there again for, over an hour. I hope that you love Annie as much as I do. I just love her so much. And if you've gotten any nuggets or, bits of information that you want to share. Subscribe. Every time you subscribe, you'll get a notification of a new episode when it drops. Like the episode, the more likes I get, the more people get drawn to it. But yeah, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all of you. I can't even tell you how much. So until next time, go out, find what lights your fire. See you next time.